Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of your favorite podcast, the Fantasy Birds. We're back. Today we have a special NFL 2021 mock draft. We're going round one, pick 1 through 32. Getting all the teams in, getting our picks in. Let us know in the comments what you guys think about these picks, who you would have picked for your teams, and just overall give us a little feedback on how you feel these picks went and if you think it's going to actually happen. But we're going to go back and forth 1 through 32 through all 32 teams. Some teams don't have first round picks. Some teams got multiple. So without further ado, let's hop right in to the number one spot. All right. So let's start off with number one overall. We got the Jacksonville Jaguars selecting here. Look, there's really no debate here. We know what's going to happen at number one overall. Trevor Lawrence, probably one of the best quarterback prospects we've ever seen, up there with Andrew Luck, John Elway, some of the top guys we've seen coming out of college. Trevor Lawrence going number one, no debate about that. Who are we looking at number two for the New York Jets?
Well, I think the reports have kind of made it obvious, right? I think the Jets have their minds made up, and they're going to go with Zach Wilson, the cornerback from BYU. Here's the thing about Zach Wilson. He's obviously a really good prospect, really good at making plays outside of the pocket. He kind of fits that mold where, you see more guys. I'm not saying he's like Aaron Rodgers or anything like that. I'm just saying you're seeing more teams go to this mold of a quarterback that can, make throws at interesting arm angles, that can get outside the pocket and push the ball downfield. Zach Wilson fits that profile for sure. Me personally, obviously, I felt like this is a predictive mock. I felt like the Jets, I was pretty comfortable the Jets are going to do this. I personally think Justin Fields is a better quarterback, but the Jets obviously are doing their due diligence and they feel like Zach Wilson's the best fit for them. So I'm going to say that the Jets are going to pick Zach Wilson here, even to the point where when San Francisco was looking to trade up out of 12 up into the top 3 for their quarterback of their choice, they came out. They didn't even talk to the Jets. They didn't even call the Jets because they knew the Jets were not gonna get out of their pick. That's how much they like Zach Wilson. So I think Zach Wilson. If you're predicting what the number 2 pick would be, Zach Wilson would be a slam dunk.
Question marks for the New York Jets if they were going to take a quarterback early in the first round with Sam Darnold as the quarterback of the future. So it had seen, but Carolina Panthers making that move for Sam Darnold. New York obviously moving to a quarterback. The draft really starts at pick number 3 with the 49ers, as everyone has kind of been talking about. 3 quarterbacks right here that they're looking at: Justin Fields, Mac Jones, Trey Lance. Rumors are saying that 49ers, Mac Jones is their guy that they want to take. I'm not sure if you trade up all the way to number 3 for a guy like Mac Jones, who elevates your team, but not to the point where you're giving up all that draft capital for the number 3 overall pick. They said they like Jimmy Garoppolo. That could just be smoke in the air, but I think they want to play Jimmy Garoppolo one more year. I think that it's either going to be Justin Fields or Trey Lance, and I think it's going to be Trey Lance just because the physical attributes that he brings to this team. A very mobile quarterback, inside the tackles, outside the tackles, very good for that Kyle Shanahan team. Very raw prospect, probably the most raw out of these top 5 guys. Not ready to play yet, you would probably think. But coming out of North Dakota State, doesn't have much experience against top-level talent. Jimmy Garoppolo plays a year. Trey Lance takes over after a year. I think this is where the 49ers are going to go, even though Mac Jones is rumored to be their guy. But I'm going to go with Trey Lance, number 3 to the 49ers.
Oh, God forbid. Okay, I'm going to make my feelings known. I am not a fan of Mac Jones this high in the draft, especially if you're going to trade 3 first-round picks for him. I personally have Mac Jones as my QB5, pretty comfortably behind the first 4 of Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, and Justin Fields. Not necessarily in that order, but where would Mac Jones be on your list of quarterbacks? Like, if you had to rank the top 5 quarterbacks, where would Mac Jones be on that list? Because for me, he's a clear 5.
Yeah, I agree. I'd take a Justin Fields over a Mac Jones just because the potential is there. The ceiling is too high for these guys. Mac Jones, you kind of know what you're getting. A pocket passer. People want to say that he's the next Tom Brady. Not really buying that just yet, but Mac Jones, very accurate with the deep ball. Very accurate quarterback in general. I think he's definitely an upgrade over Jimmy Garoppolo, but I don't think it's enough of an upgrade in the long term to warrant trading all the way up to number 3. So that's why I got Trey Lance.
But I understand the Trey Lance pick totally. What I just don't understand is I don't understand trading 3 first-round picks and multiple second and third round picks just to go up and get a slightly better version of Jimmy Garoppolo when you already have Jimmy Garoppolo. I really hope for the San Francisco 49ers sake that they don't do this, but hey, I'm a Saints fan and I love when other good teams in the NFC do dumb things. Moving on to number 4, this one was really hard because one of the things about this draft is we strictly decided not to do trades. It's not because it was lazy on our part. It's more just because trades are just impossible to predict. And we're going to come out with a 2.0 later. So if there are more trades that happen before the draft, we'll have that updated for you. But as of right now, the Falcons hold the number 4 pick. I strongly believe that this pick is going to be on the move. A lot of quarterbacks early in the draft, and I think someone is eventually going to bite the bullet and trade up. With that being said, Atlanta is currently holding this pick, and if they do, I think they're going to try and get more out of Matt Ryan. I think they still have I think the way they look at it, I think they have a few more years out of him where they can try to squeeze whatever they can out of that window. And so with that being said, I think they go with the best non-quarterback skill player available. I think they're going to go with Kyle Pitts, the tight end out of Florida, and here's why. Obviously, tight end is a position of need for them. They lost Austin Hooper. They tried replacing him with Hayden Hurst, and that was moderate. That's okay, but Hayden Hurst would never, prevent you from taking a guy like Kyle Pitts, who's that elite. He ran a 4.45 at 6'5", almost 250 pounds. Kyle Pitts is just a physical monster. He's a matchup monster. He is a blue chip prospect in every sense of the word. Edge is obviously their biggest need. There's a couple of positions I would have liked to pick for them other than a tight end. I feel like they need edge a lot more than they need tight end, but I really feel strongly that there's not an edge worth taking it for, not this year. So I think Kyle Pitts is the move here if the Falcons stay in this pick, which I don't think they're going to do, but if they do, and in this scenario they are, I'm going to have to go with Kyle Pitts.
And I'm not totally ruling out the opportunity for the Falcons to take a quarterback like a Justin Fields if he's still available at this time. Matt Ryan reconstructing his contract to where in a year they can cut him and save a lot of cap space. So taking a quarterback to sit a year, play after Matt Ryan, I think it could be a possibility, but Pitt's just too good of a prospect to pass up here. But like you said, definitely a possibility for them to trade down and still acquire a Kyle Pitts if available. All right, let's go to number 5 with the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow. Everyone wants to say Jamar Chase reunite with Joe Burrow in that magical national championship run they had, but I'm going to go with an offensive tackle, and it's not going to be the number 1 tackle in the class, Penei Sewell. Penei Sewell definitely has the highest ceiling of any tackle in this draft. But we're going with Slater out of Northwestern. They just signed a tackle to go align with Williams on the other side. Slater has guard flexibility. They can move him inside if they need be. Slater, a much better day 1 player for the Cincinnati Bengals team if they're trying to improve that offense right away. Penei Sewell, the more long-term project. So we're going to go with Slater over Penei Sewell just because he's more day 1 ready for the Cincinnati Bengals team.
That's bold. I obviously think that Rashawn Slater is more position flexible, and that's always going to be good when you have a team that has such a bad offensive line, because when you have a bad offensive line, that means you need help at multiple positions, and Rashawn Slater can help at multiple positions. To me, I just think that Penei Sewell is the best tackle in this class, and it's by a pretty decent margin over everyone else. And that's no knock over everyone else. I just think Penei Sewell is that good. And I don't think signing Riley Reif to play right tackle for a year or two should prevent you from taking a potential good player. One of the big quotes I try and live by during the draft is don't let having a good player prevent you from taking a great player. I'm sure Riley Reif would be a good player for them. I'm sure he'd be a starting level right tackle for them. I still think you pick Penei Sewell and you make it work. Obviously, you have Jonah Williams on the left side. Jonah Williams has positional versatility. If you have to kick Jonah Williams inside to do that, or if you have to move things around and make things work, I would try and make things work with Penei Sewell, but that's just me. So I was on the clock here with the Dolphins at 6. Obviously, they traded back to number 12. and then they instantly made a deal with the Eagles to get back up to number 6. I think they did this because they have a set of playmakers in mind that they really want. I think that if the Falcons trade out of their pick at 4, it makes it very likely that Kyle Pitts would be the pick here at 6 for the Miami Dolphins. I think that, and that's what I would do. However, in this case, the Falcons aren't trading out of that pick. They end up going with Pitts at 4. So I see the Dolphins pivoting and going with the second best option for them, and that is Jamar Chase out of LSU. Jamar Chase is the number 1 wide receiver in this class to me pretty comfortably. He's a good route runner. He can fit any scheme. He's a dominant outside player. He's the most physical wide receiver I've seen in terms of getting off a press. His release is off a press. People just try him. I remember watching the Alabama game, and Trevon Diggs was getting picked on really early by Jamar Chase, and so Diggs adjusted his coverage to be very aggressive at the line of scrimmage, basically trying to maul Jamar Chase whenever he could. And Jamar Chase literally just would throw him out of the way on pretty much every snap. I mean, this guy is a physical force. Obviously, when you have a receiver that's so dominant at the catch point, you would want him to be a little bit taller. 6 feet is a little bit small for a guy that you want as a jump ball receiver. However, he does pretty much everything, but he obviously wins on jump balls. So it definitely is one of those things where the skills don't necessarily match the traits, but you want him to be at least a couple inches taller. But Jamar Chase is, I think, clearly the best receiver in this class. He can do everything, and he's very physical, and he'll always be able to get open. I think he'll be a solid wide receiver 1 for the Dolphins, who pair up a very nice wide receiver room all of a sudden with Devontae Parker, Preston Williams, and Will Fuller, who they just signed, not to mention Jakeem Grant out of the slot. I think they're gonna have a lot of weapons at that receiver position, and I would be really excited if I was Tua Tagovailoa to see what he has to work with. I figure out if he's actually the truth.
Jamar Chase, people are trying to say he's Anquan Bolden with speed. Really did.
I kind of like that.
Yeah, he really his 40 time at the pro day at LSU was actually more impressive than people thought. So his stock rising there for Jamar Chase. So we have Detroit Lions on the clock here at 7. Jared Goofball Goff, the quarterback of the future, potentially for the Lions. I don't think so. Justin Fields, if he's on the clock here at number 7, I think the Detroit Lions, new coach Campbell from the New Orleans Saints, I think they're going to go with Justin Fields to replace Goff eventually. I like the Ohio State quarterback at number 7 for the Detroit Lions.
I agree. I think this is the best move that they can make. They obviously need help at wide receiver. I would have heavily considered Jalen Waddle here, but if Justin Fields, who personally is my QB2, and QB2 to the point where the gap between Fields and Lawrence for me is less than the gap between Fields and Wilson, who's my QB3. I'm that high on Justin Fields. I think the fact that the Lions are getting him here at 7 is a no-brainer, slam dunk. If there was another, like if it was like Mac Jones and maybe Trey Lance here, I would heavily consider going Jalen Waddle, considering they're so thin at wide receiver. But yeah, Justin Fields is a great pick. For the Panthers, it was easy. Penei Sewell is the best tackle in the class. It's this simple. He's fallen this far, and I say fallen this far as in he hasn't even fallen out of the top 10 yet. It's ridiculous. Penei Sewell, it's simple. The Panthers haven't needed offensive tackle. They drafted Greg Little a couple of years ago. Here's the thing about Greg Little. It's not very good. I think Penei Sewell will be an upgrade over him, and I think this is one of those things. If Penei Sewell is on the board at 8, you just traded for Sam Darnold, you're going to want to give him every opportunity to show that he's good. They have some good receivers. Bolster that offensive line. I'm sprinting to the podium on this one.
All defensive picks for the Carolina Panthers in the previous draft. Now they got that wide receiver core with DJ Moore. Lost Curtis Samuel, but they got Robbie Anderson, Christian McCaffrey coming back from injury.
Got to invest in that offense eventually.
Keep up that offensive line, and a Sam Darnold coming to town. Carolina Panthers could be making moves in the NFC South for years to come. All right, let's go to number 9 with the Denver Broncos and John Elway. Can you get your quarterback of the future? Is it Mac Jones? I think Mac Jones is going to be taken. John Elway is going to like this prospect. Current quarterback, Drew Lock, very inaccurate. The completion percentage is by far below average in the league. Very, very poor performance last year. I think they look to move off of Drew Lock. They just signed Fuller from the Chicago Bears, cornerback. It's one of their other major needs. So Drew Lock, I think, or Mac Jones, if he's able to slip to number 9, I think the Broncos would love to have this quarterback right here.
Yeah, I think the way the NFL seems to love Mac Jones, I think Mac Jones is a clear upgrade over Drew Lock. I do like this pick. I think it's decent value considering how much Mac Jones is getting pumped up. So if all the quarterbacks are going to go this high, then all things considered, I like the value here. I think this is a pretty decent spot for Mac Jones. 10 for the Dallas Cowboys. I don't really think much needs to be said here. They have a massive cornerback need, and they have Patrick Surtain on the board, and this is what I went with for the Dallas Cowboys. Throw out a disclaimer here, and that's that I think that Caleb Farley is the best cornerback in the draft. But I think if you're the Dallas Cowboys, I don't know if you want to be risking a cornerback with consistent back injuries to spend a top 10 pick on. I think they need someone reliable who can come in with great technique and be able to cover wide receiver ones on day one and hold his own in the NFL. And I think Patrick Surtain is that guy. So lock it in.
Patrick Surtain from the University of Alabama, national champions, meeting up with former teammate Trevon Diggs, cornerback for Alabama, played on the Cowboys. Didn't have an amazing rookie year, but looked to pair up those Alabama guys in the secondary to beef up the defense. At number 11.
What do the Giants do at 11?
So we got NFC East back here after the Eagles traded down for number 11 with the Giants. I'm going to go with Micah Parsons, linebacker for Penn State. He's got a lot of off-the-field issues. People want to, if he's motivated enough to play football, all these nonsense, they want to slide him down the board, but he's super athletic freak linebacker for the New York Giants. I think they could look to go for a Jalen Waddle if on the board here, maybe an edge threat, Jalen Phillips or a Kwity Paye potentially, but I think that defense, it showed a lot of improvement last year. They actually played pretty well considering what they had on paper. So I think Micah Parsons, if he can get his act right, if the Giants, some interviews go the way they like with him, maybe the Giants take Parsons here at 11.
Hey, Eagles fans, you're welcome. Jalen Waddle at 12 to the Eagles. Listen, Jalen Waddle is the second best wide receiver in this class. It's pretty close, actually, to Jamar Chase, but I think Chase edges him out because of his physicality and ability to consistently win at the catch point in the NFL and how that's a projection. But look, Jalen Waddle has an elite trait, and that's his speed and his ability to make people miss in the open field. I think you get him on short routes. You get a quarterback in Jalen Hurts who's much more likely to throw those drag routes and those short routes that Carson Wentz simply would not throw. I think Jalen Waddle would be a good fit. He's not only the best player available, but he's the best player available, and it's also at a massive position of need for them. This is obvious. Jalen Waddle at 12 to the Eagles, wide receiver out of Alabama.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts, quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. You got to give him every opportunity to succeed, and that wide receiver core really not getting it done for that Eagles team. So much needed improvement there, and maybe see if Jalen Hurts is actually the quarterback of the future as they traded down, because trying to avoid some of those quarterbacks early in the draft.
They can finally make a good decision with wide receiver. They drafted J.J. Arcega-Whiteside over DK Metcalf. They drafted Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson. They've made bad decisions with this wide receiver core that has consistently bit them in the behind, and I think this can help rectify that.
Agree there. So we got the Los Angeles Chargers at number 13. I'm going to go with Jalen Waddle's college teammate Devontae Smith out of Alabama. Mike Williams can't stay healthy for this team. Pair him up with Keenan Allen and Asian Keenan Allen, be a replacement for that Justin Herbert. They added Corey Linsley in the offseason to beef up that O-line from the Green Bay Packers. They might look to go another tackle here to protect Justin Herbert. But I think Devontae Smith is too good of a talent to pass up here for the Chargers. Add him to that offense with an Austin Eckler. Really beef up that offense to compete with the Patrick Mahomes in that AFC West. I'm going with Devontae Smith.
I'll say this about the Devontae Smith pick. I actually really like this pick. I think that they're going to open things up a lot more with Justin in year 2. You can see that compared to what they did with Phillip Rivers to what they did down the stretch with Justin Herbert, they opened up the offense. You saw a lot more 3 receiver sets. You saw a lot more of guys like Tyron Johnson, coming in as a third wide receiver. They want to use multiple wide receivers. And so if you have Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, and Devontae Smith on the same thing, you have two guys that can get open with incredible route running in those below routes, and have Mike Williams as a jump ball guy down the field. I like that. I would go offensive tackle here. I would go, maybe Christian Darrisaw or maybe even Tevin Jenkins here. But I do like the fit with Devontae Smith. I don't see it very often, so I like the creativity of it. At 14, we have the Minnesota Vikings. Again, I just think this is another easy pick for the Vikings. Elijah Vera Tucker is the best interior offensive lineman in this draft, and they have a massive hole there. I just think this one's easy. He has guard and tackle flexibility. He's a plus athlete. He can play. He can honestly be a starter in the NFL at tackle and at guard. And there's not many guys that you can say that about, but he has the physical traits to be able to do it both. But I think they're going to start him at guard. I've got Elijah Vera Tucker going at 14 to the Minnesota Vikings out of USC.
New England Patriots here at number 15 in the draft. There's rumors that Patriots could be players to trade up and draft a quarterback of the future, maybe a Mac Jones, kind of similar to a Tom Brady. But we're not doing trades. We can't really predict that. So we're going to sit tight at 15 with the New England Patriots, and we're going J.C. Horn, cornerback out of South Carolina. From what I've heard, New England Patriots pretty good with getting cornerbacks from South Carolina, maybe a Stephon Gilmore, ring some bells. But Gilmore, other corners on the team, we don't know how long they're going to be contracted with the New England Patriots, could look to be traded this year. So J.C. Horn, a very, very fast cornerback, man-to-man guy. The Patriots love that. I think it's a great fit for this team in a position of need coming in the future. Maybe not so much right now, but Stephon Gilmore, is he going to be there long term? Do they look to trade him, or is he leaving? J.C. Horn, the guy I'm going with out of South Carolina to the New England Patriots.
I think you broke the Cardinals' hearts by taking J.C. Horn at 15, because that's who I was going to pick at 16 here for the Cardinals. Look, they need a cornerback, and I know Caleb Farley's kind of a risk, but I went with Caleb Farley here. I just think Caleb Farley's the best cornerback in the draft. You gamble on it's a gamble on the injury, but at the end of the day, this is a massive position of need, and it's not every day that you get a player this good at their biggest position of need still there. Caleb Farley has great ball skills. He was a former wide receiver, and actually before that came to Virginia Tech to play quarterback. He's played a lot of different positions. His intelligence is obviously there. He's still learning the position, but the fact that he is where he is in his development this early into his transition into cornerback, I think that's just a testament to how quick he is as a learner, how smart he is, and how physically gifted he is, man. Like, that receiver background is really it really shows. He has incredible ball skills. He's fluid. He can play any type of coverage. I like Caleb Farley a lot, and I think 16 is about, the time when you would want to start taking a gamble on a player like that.
Caleb Farley, let's keep in mind, without this back injury, definitely the first cornerback off the board. But we know how back injuries, they tend to linger. They tend to pop back up in random moments. So something to keep in mind with Caleb Farley, but definitely a very talented cornerback out of Virginia Tech. All right, let's move on to the Las Vegas Raiders. And we're going with Christian Darrisaw out of Virginia Tech. Teammates, very power run blocking guy out of Virginia Tech. This Raiders team lost a lot of their offensive line in free agency, trading them away. Really confusing to some people why they're destroying their offensive line, bringing in a Kenyon Drake, bringing in Josh Jacobs in the draft 2 years back, John Gruden, pound the football kind of guy. I think this is a great pick. Could have bolstered that offensive line right off the bat, get them a lot tougher, a lot stronger, and moving downhill in the run game. Yeah,
I think the Raiders would kind of go for the Tevin Jenkins thing. I think that kind of fits their culture of what they like. I think Tevin Jenkins would be a Gruden type of guy. However, it makes the Christian Darrisaw pick here makes a lot of sense. Obviously, they've blown up their offensive line, and they traded away Trent Brown, I believe back to New England. Trent Brown was also a massive human being, and they liked him a lot at right tackle. I think they're going to basically bring back that mold at right tackle just a little bit cheaper for them. I guess that's their plan. If they feel like they can get a good offensive tackle at 17. Either way, I think offensive tackle is the clear need for them here. So I do like the Darisaw pick for the Raiders. 18 to the Miami Dolphins. This pick was hard. I went back and forth with this. I really did. I really thought that Najee Harris might be a guy that they would pick at 18, but I feel like Jalen Phillips is the best edge rusher in the draft. Jalen Phillips is the best edge rusher in the draft. He obviously has a lot of concerns. He had concussions. He transferred and sat out for a year, but he was a consensus 5-star coming out of high school, the number 1 player in the country. And it was clear after watching him in Miami that this past season, he was not only the best pass rusher on that team when you have guys like Quincy Roche and Greg Rousseau, who opted out but was there last year. Doesn't matter. He was better than Rousseau anyway. Jalen Phillips, I'm really high on him. If you told me he went between picks 10 and 12, I would not be surprised. I think he's that good, and I just think that at a premium position, you have the best player in the draft at a premium position. I don't think Miami should pass that up. Jalen Phillips is scheme versatile. He can play in that multiple style defense that they want, and also plays a traditional 4-3 defensive end, which I don't think they're going to play him as. I think they're going to move him around a little bit. They like to be exotic with their defenses, but either way, you can do anything with Jalen Phillips. This has to be the pick for me if the board falls like this. If I was doing this anyway.
At Washington football team at number 19 in the NFL draft, football team with one of the best front sevens in the NFL, shoring up that wide receiver core with a Curtis Samuel, playing well on defense, getting a Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think they look to go offensive tackle with Tevin Jenkins, fill that hole at tackle from Oklahoma State. Tevin Jenkins is my pick here for the Washington football team, looking to get back to the playoffs, back as NFC East champions.
His hands are violent, man. He looks to maul people. It's hilarious. And the funny thing is when you look at his profile picture on the Oklahoma State website, he looks like a very mild-mannered guy. He's just got glasses. He almost looks like that bookworm, that nerd from high school. It almost as if he has that look, except he's a massive guy, and his hand placement is very good, and he will maul you with his hand. I love the way that he plays. He plays with a mean streak. I think Washington needs that. They've tried to build through the trenches. They did it with the defensive line. I really like this pick for the Washington football team.
Being that replacement for Trent Williams that they lost a couple years back to the 49ers, never really got that relationship back in order. So Trent Williams replacement, potentially for the future, Tevin Jenkins.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Chicago Bears are in a similar situation in that I would have also thought heavily about taking Rashad Bateman at number 19 for the Washington football team as well. I also thought about that here with Chicago at 20. My comp for Rashad Bateman is actually Allen Robinson. So you'd be getting another version of Allen Robinson and probably getting some value if, I think Allen Robinson is going to leave eventually. This team just has too many needs, though. They need a quarterback, but they're not going to be able to get one if they don't trade up. In this scenario, obviously, we don't have them trading up. They're staying put. So I guess they have to go offensive tackle here. Their offensive line just simply wasn't that good. I think that Rashad Bateman would be a very good fit here. However, I feel like you got to go Liam Eichenberg here. Eichenberg doesn't have the physical traits that will wow you necessarily. He's a sufficient athlete, but not a great one. But he's just so technically sound. He knows what he's doing. I think this is a guy that's going to be ready to start at right tackle for you week 1 as a rookie. And I think that's really valuable for them. I think that's what they need. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Liam Eichenberg, the offensive tackle out of Notre Dame. They have a good track record of putting out offensive linemen. And I know you want to scout the player, not the helmet. But it's kind of like when you see a defensive back out of LSU or a wide receiver out of Alabama. It's really It's not very often that those guys miss. And Liam Eichenberg just knows what he's doing. He's very technically sound. I like this pick here at 20. I think this is decent value considering what they need out of their tackles.
All right, 21 for the Indianapolis Colts. You talked about Rashad Bateman out of Minnesota. I'm going to go with him here at the wide receiver position. Colts could look to add players in the offensive line or even an edge potential to get after the quarterback. But T.Y. Hilton being brought back on a short-term contract, he's getting up there in age. We saw it last year. Not really the player he used to be. They need that wide receiver replacement. The number one guy, Rashad Bateman, can be that for the future to meet up with Carson Wentz, to elevate this offense. That defense is rolling. I like Rashad Bateman out of Minnesota to the Indianapolis Colts. Give Wentz just one more option for a long-term wide receiver fix there.
I like it too. And the reason why I like the Rashad Bateman pick is that, first of all, I was going to pick him for the Titans at 22 if he was there. But the reason why I like that pick is after Eichenberg and after Tevin Jenkins and Darisaw kind of came off the board between 17 and 20, I think now you're at a point where you might be slightly reaching on offensive tackles if you wanted to go that route. The Colts obviously need a new left tackle. Anthony Costanzo retiring. They kind of have a hole there. But you don't really like the value necessarily of trying to reach for an offensive tackle when you have a guy like Rashad Bateman on the board. I had a similar thought process when looking at Tennessee for number 2. They need cornerback, obviously. Greg Newsome is a popular guy that's mocked here. Caleb Farley is a popular guy that's mocked here. However, he didn't make it this far. I think the two biggest needs for them are offensive line and wide receiver. Their recent drafting of Isaiah Wilson was a disaster. They traded him to Miami before Miami cut him. They signed Dennis Kelly as their swing type tackle last year. However, he's cut now. So they have a hole at offensive tackle. However, like I said, I don't really like the value here necessarily. And I think wide receiver is the other one that they've had huge attrition at. Corey Davis was big for them, but Corey Davis is going to be gone. He's going to the New York Jets, who actually have the next pick in the draft. And they also lost Humphreys out of the slot. You're losing a lot of snaps, a lot of production. They need to replenish that room if they're going to try and compete in the AFC. You need someone other than A.J. Brown. Terrace Marshall's a guy that can win downfield, but also they can line him up in the slot. He showed that at LSU. He was productive in a lot of different spots. Simply put, I think Terrace Marshall is the pick here because he's the best player available at a position of need. So I think this is a good fit for the Tennessee Titans, going for an LSU player with a premium pick for the second year in a row, having drafted Christian Fulton last year as their nickel corner. So I think they're going to go back to that well and get Terrace Marshall here at 22. I think that's appropriate value for him.
New York Jets on the clock at 23. This team really needs every single position when you look at it, other than maybe quarterback, because we expect them to take a Zach Wilson, the number 2 overall pick. But, I mean, this team really needs everything. Cornerback, probably the second biggest position of need for this team. If I had probably the worst cornerback unit in the entire NFL, for being totally honest. But with that in mind, we're going to go Newsome out of Northwestern, cornerback for this New York Jets team. Sure up that secondary with a secondary a division that includes a Josh Allen, Tua Tagovailoa, and Cam Newton, depending on who the Patriots decide to go with. So cornerback, very high position of need for this New York Jets team, where they're going to get their Greg Newsome to fill that spot.
Was cornerback? Did you feel like cornerback was a bigger need than having another edge opposite Carl Lawson? Given you had guys like, Kwity Paye was still on the board, Azeez Ojulari still on the board. You're getting some good edge. Jason Oweh's on the board, although he's not really technically sound. Did you feel that corner was kind of more of a need for them? Because I probably would have gone edge here just because I feel like there was a lot of good edges at this position that they could have chosen.
Yeah, I think pass rushing and cornerbacks probably 2 of the most important positions on the field, defensive wise. Jets really struggle, like I said, at every single position. They're probably going to look to go best player available here. Greg Newsome, I think cornerback's more a position of need. but I would not be surprised. I believe this is going to be a defensive pick. I don't see them going Najee Harris, even though running back is definitely a position of need. This is going to be a defensive pick, in my opinion. It's going to be either edge or cornerback, but I'm going to give the edge to cornerback because they've been so bad over the past seasons, and I think Newsom's going to be able to help them out.
Well, speaking of Najee Harris made me tear my hair out over this pick. The Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously, they're going to be losing James Conner. And here's the thing about James Conner is that James Conner is just not very good. It's that simple. They need an upgrade at running back. They drafted Anthony McFarland last year. They drafted Benny Snell recently as well. However, I don't think those guys I don't think either of those guys are guys you want to give 200 plus carries to per year. They need a bell cow running back. But you could find that later in the draft. You can always find good value at running back later in the draft. I'm gonna go defense here for them. Actually, they lost Bud Dupree. They lost Bud Dupree in the offseason. And what do we know about the Steelers and what they like? They like very raw, unrefined, incredible athletes from big time programs. They drafted Terrell Edmonds to play at safety for them. They drafted Bud Dupree when he really didn't know much of how to play football, but it was a gamble that they took, and it worked out for him because eventually in year 3, year 4, he kind of figured it out for them. I think they're going to make that same bet here on a guy with Jason Owe, who just tested out of his mind. Jason Owe is one of those guys who the testing numbers don't match the production. He didn't have a single sack last season. However, that doesn't always tell the case. Yeah, he was obviously pressuring the quarterback, and he would wreak some havoc there. But the fact that he didn't get a single sack, I gotta say, is kind of concerning, and I don't want to just write that off. But yeah, he ran the 4.3s as like a 6'5", 250-pound edge defender, which is just bananas. This guy is crazy. I think the Steelers are going to take him and try to mold him into that edge rusher opposite TJ Watt that they want.
Very solid pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers there. Let's move on to the Jacksonville Jaguars, getting their quarterback of the future in Trevor Lawrence at the number 1 overall pick. We're going to flip the sides, go to the defensive side with Christian Barmore out of Alabama. Sure enough, that defensive line. Jacksonville Jaguars got to get after the quarterback. Defensive line, big part of that. Filling up that middle for this defensive line. I think it's going to be a good pick. They could look to go wide receiver to give DJ Chark and Laviska Shenault some help on the outside and in the slot. But I'm going to go with defensive tackle Christian Barmore out of Alabama.
I think that's a really interesting pick. It's something that I haven't really seen. Again, I think it could be useful for them. When I think of the Jacksonville Jaguars at 25, I immediately start to think of Trevon Merrick, the safety out of TCU, and Pat Freiermuth, the tight end out of Penn State. I think, however, you get a defensive tackle, a guy that has a lot of pass rushing upside. I see it. It's not what I would do, but if you told me that the Jaguars picked the best interior defensive lineman in the draft at 25, it would be appropriate value, and I would understand it. Now, in terms of a pick, I really do like, and I'm running to the podium for. You've got Kwity Paye on the board at 26 for the Cleveland Browns. They need another edge opposite Myles Garrett. Ogunjobi's a free agent as well. They need a guy that can kind of play that edge spot, but also kind of kick inside on pass rushing downs. Kwity Paye is freak, man. He's 270 pounds. He's about 6'3", and he's simply one of the best athletes in all of college football. He's available at 26, and that's just going to create a very scary pass rushing duo between him and Myles Garrett. I would not want to face them. I think Kwity Paye this is one of those situations where you run to the podium and pick Kwity Paye. I just think it's such a good scheme fit for what they want to do and run that 4-3 defense.
Another AFC North team right here, the Baltimore Ravens. A lot of people like to go wide receiver here, even with the Sammy Watkins signing in Baltimore in the offseason, pair up with a Marquise Brown. I think wide receiver could still be in play even with that Watkins signing. But losing Matthew Judon, I think edge is by far the biggest need for this team. Help out that defense. I Azeez Ojulari out of Georgia off the edge, get some pressure on the quarterback for that Baltimore Ravens team to beef up that defense. As the AFC North quarterback room is getting a lot elevated in play with Baker Mayfield, Joe Burrow, and Ben Roethlisberger. So I think getting after the quarterback is going to be a need for this Baltimore Ravens team. Azeez Ojulari going to help out there.
The New Orleans Saints at 28. As you can tell by my jersey, I thought long and hard about this pick. I really wanted to pick Kadarius Toney, and the first little play around mock draft that we did about last week, I actually had the Saints picking Kadarius Toney because I thought that okay, well, who's the player that the NFL who's the player that the Saints would pick and the rest of the NFL would just be like, oh, damn, like, you know what I mean? Like, Sean Payton would be very creative on how to use Kadarius Toney. However, cornerback is a really big need, and out of all the cornerbacks available that I would consider taking the first round, only one of them is left, and that's Eric Stokes, the cornerback out of Georgia. He's very good. He tested out of his mind, ran in the low 4.3s, which is a lot faster than we thought. But you put on his tape, he's just a really fluid, very solid guy. He doesn't get beat very often, doesn't really make mistakes. And that's the type of guy that you can slide in week one, opposite of Marshawn Lattimore, which, you know, that's an entirely separate situation with Marshawn Lattimore by itself. But I do think that's going to get resolved either way, whether you're able to bring Lattimore back or not, whether he's suspended for any amount of time or not, you still need another cornerback outside of him anyway, because right now Patrick Robinson and PJ Williams are your best options on the outside, and those are pretty clearly some nickel slot guys for the Saints at corner. They don't have another outside corner on the roster. Eric Stokes can come in and fill that void for them day one. Eric Stokes at 28 to the Saints, cornerback out of Georgia.
Green Bay Packers at number 29. We're going to go with the guy you mentioned, Kadarius Toney. Look, the Packers in the previous drafts, they've been drafting backup players. Love, quarterback, back up to Rodgers, and A.J. Dillon back up to Aaron Jones. Now with Jamal Williams leaving town, now the second string running back. So they need to help that offense. Cornerback, I think, could be in play. Much needed position. We saw Tampa Bay pick apart that defense. Cornerback, something I think they could look to go here, but wide receiver, Kadarius Toney, help out Aaron Rodgers, MVP of the league. Just a versatile player. You put him in the slot. He does so many things, a small guy, but just so versatile, like I said. And the way he moves around the field, run after catch, I think he's dynamic for this team. And I like Kadarius Toney to take some pressure off of Devontae Adams for the Packers.
This was very interesting. I think Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah was the best player on the board, first of all. The Bills have most of their players coming back, but all offseason they've kind of wanted this, you know, that jack of all trades guy, someone who can drop back into coverage as kind of that will linebacker, but can also, you know, play coverage safety, play in this. He's a lot like what you would see out of Isaiah Simmons last year. Not the same type of player, obviously. I don't want to make that one-to-one comparison, but he's a guy you play him at linebacker. He's really good in coverage. He can hold his own in the run game. He's got really good instincts, and he's very aggressive. He's a hard hitter, but he's also a guy that you can put at safety, and he will be really good as well. I honestly think he's more of a box safety than he is a linebacker, but I think he's a jack of all trades type of guy. He's a guy that I think the Bills definitely would know how to use and someone that they would want. So yeah, I think the Bills would go Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah here at 30 to the Buffalo Bills. The slide stops for him. He's definitely a first round player. I don't know how many teams he would fit on, but I think defensive coordinators would have to just get creative and learn how to use this guy, because if they do, then you're getting a Pro Bowl player.
Super Bowl runner-ups, Kansas City Chiefs on the board here. I think it's pretty clear where the Chiefs need to go. Wide receiver is a big position of need with Sammy Watkins leaving that team, Mecole Hardman, backups, what you have it. But I think offensive tackle is the number one position of need. Schwartz for that team leaving two offensive tackles out in the Super Bowl. We saw how Tampa Bay ripped them apart. Shaq Barrett feasting all over the field. We're going with Cosby out of Texas. I think this is a clear pick. The best offensive tackle on the board should be going to Kansas City to bolster that offensive line for Patrick Mahomes going forward if they're going to make another Super Bowl run.
Yeah, I agree. They need offensive line really bad. They're going to need another offensive tackle. I would, if I'm at 31 for the Kansas City Chiefs, I would also think about Landon Dickerson here as an interior offensive lineman. They need help everywhere. They gutted their offensive line. Obviously, we saw the memes on Instagram, on Twitter about it. But the problem is real. They need offensive linemen, and Samuel Cosmi is a offensive tackle with really good physical tools. He held his own against Caleb Chason really well in the LSU game in 2019. He was very impressive, and he's kind of built off it since then. He's really tall. I'm really concerned about his leverage and whether or not he's going to be able to keep his balance against power rushers, but he's very quick on his feet. He's got some good tools to work with, and I think he's a guy that can pay dividends for the Chiefs. At 32, you have the Super Bowl champions, and this pick was both very hard and not hard at all because it's obviously widely known that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are bringing back all 22 starters from a Super Bowl team, which means they don't have a clear position of need. They have good players all around at every position, so you just take the best player available. I think you can debate whether or not Javon Merrick is the best player available, but I do think this is a guy that definitely, first of all, he's good enough to be a first-round pick, and I think he absolutely should be under pretty much any circumstances. But also, this is a guy that could fit next to Antoine Winfield. They drafted Antoine Winfield last year. They have Jordan Whitehead. Again, Jordan Whitehead is a good player. He's a headhunter. He's a guy that filled in admirably for them this past season, but I think Trevon Merrick can be that long-term answer on that over-the-top safety. He's got good range. He's a very smart player. He's got good physical tools. I like Merrick a lot. I think this is a good pick for the Bucs here at 32.
All right, well, look, that's going to wrap up our NFL Mock Draft 1.0. All 32 picks in the books for the Fantasy Birds. We thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next week with another episode of Fantasy Birds.